Hi everyone, welcome to the Sip and Spin. I am the Tipsy Spinster, and on today's show, we are planning for an epic fall road trip. I got this really fun bag and I was like, hey, I want to use this because I kind of feel like Mary Poppins. And so we started planning a road trip, and I thought, you know what? With the times that we're currently living in, road trips might very well make a huge comeback. Not that they're not big anyway, but I have a feeling as we continue to progress forward into this decade, it would be fun to see the road trip make a resurgence. People flying less and hopping in their cars more. Well, when you're in a car, you do have limited space, but as a fiber artist, you want to make sure that you bring along things that you're going to be able to do, A, while you're on the road, B, while you're in hotel rooms or during downtime, and C, projects that will help commemorate the trip. So today is the planning day for our road trip. First things first, create a cocktail. And for this particular cocktail, it's a very simple 2-ingredient cocktail. It's Empress 1908 gin and apple seltzer. And the reason why I chose the apple is because it is fall. This is a fall-themed road trip, and I am hopeful that we will only have blue skies on this trip. I did do a sugar rim on it. It's an incredibly dry cocktail, but it's perfect for sipping and planning. So my sister told me that I could not bring everything, meaning I needed to pare down and make conscious choices about the fiber tools that I was going to take. Well, the first thing that I realized I absolutely had to take was going to be my Electric Eel Nano because it travels so compactly. So the case for my Nano is Namaste from Jimmy Bean's Wool. And when you open it up and look inside, you can see that everything is housed perfectly. I have the wheel, my battery pack, everything. I have fiber, and I have spindles. So this is just ready to go in the car. It's all charged up. It's all ready to go. So I'm going to set that aside. Next, I had a final project planned. We were doing this on a budget, and traveling on a budget, it's always an important thing to set a budget anyway. So my final project, or how I wanted to commemorate this trip, was going to be with postcards. And I discovered as I was researching this, there was actually a Tapestry postcard initiative. Check out the link in the description because some of these postcards are absolutely amazing. I don't think mine is probably going to look even remotely close to some of these works of art, but I would encourage you to check it out. Tapestry weaving is a wonderful way to commemorate events, moments, feelings. It doesn't require really much of anything. All you need is a loom and fiber or yarn, and you can pretty much create any picture that you want. For me, I will be taking along one of my looms from Handy Woman, and project bags are perfect for that. So my loom is going to go into my project bag. And I apologize, I can't remember where I got this one. I get them from so many places. I will need something to work with if I want to start weaving on the road. And then I have a notions bag as well. When you're doing tapestry weaving, you do need a beater and you'll need a needle in order to do some of the actual weaving. So, my weaving, I will set that aside. Now, for the spinning. Yeah, the Electric Eel Nano, I can do quite a bit with that, but The Nano really likes to spin fine, and I am going to want yarns that have lots of variety, and I want to use a lot of different tools. I discovered that one of the tools that works best for travelers is probably one of the oldest spindles known to man, and it's been rediscovered. It's one of those things, anytime you're working with a spindle that happened before recorded history, you're kind of in the dark a little bit as to the provenance and where it actually came from. This particular style of spindle, though, is actually very cool. It is unpronounceable. We're going to call it a Txoatile. And there's an X in there, and I don't know how to say that X, so I'm just going to make up a word and roll with it. So I apologize for those of you that actually know the correct pronunciation of these spindles. I do have the correct spelling of it and where I got these in the description section, so you can school me on proper pronunciation. I've got a rough idea. These are a combination from two different makers, Muddy Duck as well as Dancing Goats. The nice thing with this particular spindle is the fact that how you wrap your cop will enable you to essentially create an Andean plying bracelet. And these pieces are big enough that I can spin as well as ply on these tools. Also, with the one from Dancing Goat, I can spin supported or as a drop spindle, which is really kind of nice. So this is going to be my spinning plying station right here. So I am all set to go on that one. Now, because I have only just discovered support spindle spinning, I've actually only been spinning supported for about a year. And so I really want to make sure that I can take some of those tools with me as well. But which ones to take? Let's see. I have so many to choose from, but I want to make sure that I'm making good choices. So I am going to take a couple that I feel will best represent what it is that I'm trying to do on this road trip. So I am going to take my fall themed Russian style from Woodland Handcrafts. I am going to take my rainbow Russian Chac-Chac from Straddle Creek Spins, and I am going to take my absolute favorite slightly larger Tibetan from Spanish Peacock, and this is one of my favorites. And then when it comes to spinning bowls, I'm going to take a couple. I am going to take my Straddle Creek because I can put this on my lap as I spin. But as most of you know, I'm such a huge fan of magnets. I am also going to take my martini bowl from Spanish Peacock. So now I have my 3 spindles that I'm going to take. So I have a nice collection of tools. Packing them and storing them is a little bit. I have to make sure that I'm going to do that. And Slipped Stitch Studios created these wonderful spinning totes so I can actually store my spindles. Nope, I'm actually going to do this one this way. So I can keep them stationary and secure. For traveling. And then it just closes right up. And I'm going to put some fiber in there as well in order to keep everything from jostling around. And I can put my spinning bowls down at the bottom as well, like so. Spinning tools set. I'm going to just set that there for now. And then last but not least, I have a plethora of fiber that I have just put into a handy little Ziploc bag. so I have easy access to it. Now, the wonderful thing about this is that it all fits in my bag. And there's one other thing I'm going to pop in. I am going to pop in my fun-filled notions case, just in case I need some other stuff. And look, I said I wouldn't do this unless it fit. It fits. I have all the tools that I am going to need for my road trip, and I am so excited. We're going to be traveling across 5 states in beautiful fall weather, nothing but blue skies ahead. I can't wait for this adventure. I'm here at the RV Hall of Fame because I thought this would be a wonderful place to start this season. I've been doing a lot of research on how 1950s families spent time together. And one of the ways that they spent time together was on the iconic road trip. So this trailer right here pretty much encompasses the trailer of my dreams. This is a 1958 22-foot Airstream, and on the sign it says, "Go where you like, stay as long as you please, with all the comforts of home." And I realized that as I get older, finding something like this to travel in and to see the United States would be absolutely perfect. And as I was walking through this museum, this is the trailer of my dreams. It has all of the comforts of home. And for me, my biggest comfort is I need to have a shower. So this is the trailer of my dreams, but let's see what other trailers there are to explore before I pick one to sit down and do a little spinning in. Adorable, but a little too small for me, although I do love the name, The Little Prince. That one is just fun inside. It reminds me of my farmhouse where I grew up. I like that one a lot as well. A little bit too rustic though. This one also caught my eye. I really like this trailer a lot because one of the things I noticed as I was reading about it is that this was one of the first trailers. Windows still weren't part of the trailer. So these were like little, they were kind of like sardine cans. But what this company did is they included a back door which doubled for airflow as well as a fire escape. And this one's a lot of fun inside. One of the things that I notice as I'm looking at some of these vintage trailers is you need to be a relatively small human being in order to enjoy all of the features. Here's a perfect example. When we take a look at this little tiny guy, this is the Scotty. When you look in this trailer, it almost reminds me of a child's playhouse because everything in it is so incredibly compact. So after going through the entire museum and looking at all of the wonderful campers and the restoration process and the people that made this museum possible, the 1954 Yellowstone Travel trailer is the one where I am going to spend my afternoon spinning. Why don't you join me? So today's road trip game is finding a camper trailer that is the best fit for my little Nautilus. And I named my electric eel e-spinner the Nautilus because it has the ocean theme. And as I've stated, California is one of my favorite places to visit. And this is the wheel that I usually travel with to California. These campers were made in California. And one of the things that I noticed with my height and the table size, I had to change how I spin. Trying to spin this way, I was getting cramped and my shoulders were coming up. So a quick tip, if you're in a situation where your table height can't be adjusted and your seat height can't be adjusted, it's an overhand drafting method. So as I start the wheel and get it going, what I'm doing is just pulling out my fiber and drafting overhand. And this is also a really nice technique if your wrists start to get sore. It definitely changes the position of your wrist, and it is a little bit more natural or a more relaxed hand position. So as much as I like this little 1954 Yellowstone trailer, I think I'm going to see if I can find one that's a little bit better fit for both me and my little Nautilus. Oh my gosh, that's a car. I love this one. Oh. If we could find a way to put a bathroom in here, this would be the house car of my dreams. This is beautiful. Oh, I love this one. I love it. It's gorgeous. Wish you were here. Oh my God, I found a 1954 Spartan Imperial Mansion. It is like a mobile home. It has little tiny air vents. This would make the perfect spinning room. And as we walk forward, we have the back door, we have the heating unit, has a little, the bathroom is like a full size with a baby tub in there that is absolutely adorable. It would be perfect for washing fleeces. The beds are right here. Full size kitchen, and it gets better. There is even a sitting room. And while not functional, I appreciate the fact that they put a sewing machine in here. I am picturing my little hand crank right here. This is amazing. I had absolutely no idea the 1950s offered such a wide variety in mobile camping opportunities. This truly is an imperial mansion. So this is the 1954 Shasta. Both the Airstream and the Shasta were built in California, and California is my home away from home. And as much as I love the Airstream, these little Shastas really speak to me. They are perfectly quaint, and in my opinion, they epitomize the idea of tiny living, tiny camping. So let's see what it looks like inside. So much fun. I feel like this could easily be my home away from home. We have all of the comforts of home, bed and stove and oh, but we're missing a bathroom. The Shasta, sorry, this little guy would not be the home of my dreams, but it'll be fun to do a little bit of spinning in. Oh, wait. Cue lights and the angelic music of finding your dream trailer. I believe I have found the perfect match for both me and the Nautilus. Let's find out. So this little trailer has it all. These are my favorite colors anyway, and it matches my Namaste train case as well. One of the reasons why I was drawn to this trailer is because it's not vintage. This is an upgrade. This trailer has been completely upgraded, and I can honestly say that if we had the trailer hitch on the car, there's a good possibility I'd be going home with a brand new camper trailer today, because I think I'm in love. So the Namaste train cases are really nice because everything is compact and it all fits in there perfectly. So let's see how well this little guy spins. I always worry about the noise, but I've discovered that with the little Nautilus, the sound, and maybe it's just me as I get more used to it, but the sound to me is very soothing. Here's one of the other things. So in the vintage camper that I was working in, the table height didn't work for me. This table is the perfect height to do both short forward and long draw. I have enough arm room. Doing long draw with my hand over the top is very awkward. This table is the perfect height for me. So I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time just sitting here, imagining myself on an actual road trip with this little camper in tow. So being on the road, sometimes you have to make do with what you have, and sometimes necessity is the mother of invention. On this road trip, I am traveling with my daughter, who is an avid crafter as well, and she brought along some knitting.
So I ended up signing up for a month-long knit-along, and I'm just getting started on the project that came with it. But as I was starting, I realized I didn't have the stitch markers I needed to complete the project. So like I've done my entire life, when I needed something craft-related that I did not have access to, I turned to my mother.
We have a craft closet in the house, and pretty much for those of you with children who come to you the night before and go, oh my God, I need a project for school tomorrow, we start building up these things so we can say, go check the craft closet and see what you can find. So all you need to do this project is to hop into any craft store and get some 2mm. This is nylon beading cord, and I like the rainbow color because it's going to help us when we tighten our monkey paw stitch markers. So to measure off your trusty scissors, you're just going to measure off from the tip of your finger up to about your elbow and cut a piece off. I will let my daughter cut her piece off as well. And there is going to be some excess, and that's okay. And this is where, depending upon the length of your cord, that's going to determine your final opening or hole for your stitch marker. So if you're working with knitting needles that are a little bit bigger, you're going to want to go with a longer piece of cord. Knitting needles that are smaller, of course, a shorter piece of cord. However, as you can see, it doesn't really matter. Even the bigger loops, it still works just fine on your knitting. So here we go. In order to make a monkey paw stitch holder, you're going to want to have a leader that's probably going to come down and dangle below your ring finger, and this end is going to get tucked in, but you're going to need that end later. So you're going to wrap the cord around your finger so you have 3 loops on your finger, and then carefully slide those 3 loops off, and you're going to hold down at the bottom. And this is where practice, and it starts to get a little tricky because this cord is slippery. So holding onto it, you can see I'm holding on down here. I'm going to take and I am going to wrap the cord 3 times around this way. So I do have this piece angling down, but I don't want to lose that because I'm going to need that hole. So now as I come through, I'm going to take the end and I'm going to come through all of the loops on the top, as you can see. Gently pull it, and then I'm going to slide it down like so. Put over, and I'm going to do that a couple more times. And this is where, if you're starting to get a little bit frustrated because you're running out of cord like I am here, you're going to get all of that length back. And this is where having a multicolored cord works, because I know my yellow is my beginning and this light orange is my end. So I can start tightening it up in order to give myself more room or more cord to wrap that around that final time before I start tightening. The one thing that you don't want to do is tighten your monkey paw stitch marker up too soon. And the reason for that is, while you'll still be able to undo it if you need to, it does get a little bit trickier. And so now I have a lot down here. This is already starting to tighten up. I know I'm going to want this to go through one more time. Think in terms of 3s. You want each side of your monkey paw to have at least 3 loops on it, and that's for stability. So I'm going to come through one more time. And so now I'm still a little light on here. So now I'm going to start tightening this up. And really, this is where this takes the longest amount of time, is getting it tightened up and getting that final piece or that final loop on there. But this is also something that could be a fun thing to do in the car. And so here I realize I only have kind of 2 right here. So I'm going to take, since I have a long piece right here, I'm going to go ahead and stick it through like so. And getting it to go through that last time. There we go. Ha 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 ha. I'm gonna tuck it through one more time here, pull everything tight, and then I will clip my ends. And if you have, now this is where you can go back through, and if you want to push, if you've got extras, so like right here, I see I've only got 2 because I've got this guy right here, and I've got this piece hanging over. There are no monkey paw creation police. So if you want to tighten it up before you cut off your end bits, you certainly can. And then if you have a lighter, especially if you're using nylon cord like this, you can singe these 2 ends in order to make it just a little bit more stable. So now I'm going to clip off my 2 extra end pieces, like so, and we have another monkey paw stitch marker. You know, and it really is. Probably the fidgety bit is getting everything tightened up, but once you do, you really end up with a very nice, colorful little stitch marker, and you can have a whole collection of those. If you've got kids in the car, you can have monkey paw stitch marker contest. So in this case, Mom wins in making the stitch marker. And I think that's only because I am slightly less of a perfectionist than my daughter is. But as you can see, she's just about done as well, and hers looks great. So what do you think of the process? Is this something that you're going to be sitting in the car working on for the next couple hours until we get to our next destination?
Oh, definitely. If only because it needs to be absolutely perfect.
So there you go, a quick tutorial, necessity being the mother of invention. So this is a quick tip technique on making stitch markers on the road, on the go, with just a couple supplies, string and a pair of scissors. Probably one of the most exciting part of a road trip is being able to pull off on a scenic overlook and actually experience some of the history. I know where I'm standing right now is a crossroads of 3 states, and there is so much rich history embedded here that I wanted to talk a little bit about an absolutely brilliant travel spindle. This is a spindle that originated in the Basque region of Spain, and it is considered a Neolithic spindle. It is one of the oldest known spindle styles as a drop spindle. This probably would have traditionally been bone. I got this from Dancing Goats on Etsy, and one of the things that I like about it, couple things. One, it has a long shaft. Most of the time when we see Chac-Chac spindles, which I think C-H-A-U, I'm Txoatile spindles, you generally see them with a very short hooked top. And I actually like this design a little bit better because I can spin either as a supported spindle, like so, which once again, one of the reasons I love being able to spin drop spindle supported, because I get more control, and I also have the ability, just like with the support spindle, to store my cop here. Now, one of the things that makes this spindle so travel worthy is the fact that when I go to wind on, very much like a Turkish spindle, I have my leader down here, but when I wind on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around here, and I'm going to come up and over, come down and over, down and over. And then, of course, up at the top, and I'm ready to start spinning again. Now, as I work with this and store it, and as I build the cop, I'm going to set this aside for just a second. The nice thing with this particular set from Dancing Goats is it came with 3 spindles, and this is the one that I already have built. So I'm going to talk about this one for just a second. I will hand this over to my lovely assistant. So this already has the cop built onto it. So now I am ready to, so I pull this off. Just like with an Andean plying bracelet, I will be ready to start plying right off of this spindle. And that's one of the things that makes this so amazing, is I'm going to be able to spin right off of here. So when I'm traveling, instead of having to bring a Swift and a ball winder or a nose to peen and lots of other tools, I can just bring one spindle and the 3 whorls that go with it, and I will be able to spin supported, spin drop, wind on like I would an Andean plying bracelet, and ply as well. So it's kind of wonderful. I have one tool that has 3 different amazing functions, and I can spin just about anywhere. And I am going to spend a little bit of time this afternoon sitting here and enjoying this amazing view. I will be interviewing the Peahen of the Spanish peacock. I met up with her during our road trip, and I am so glad she had some time to spend to talk with me, because I realized in talking with her, I've actually only been support spinning for a little over a year, and I value her advice, her opinion, and the techniques that she shared with me when we had the opportunity to connect and chat about spinning. Now, before I jump into the conversation that I had with her, I wanted to do just a very fast history of spinning. So here we go. At some point in time, a long time ago, and there's tons of record on this, at some point in time, somebody realized that you could take a stick and spin fiber into something stronger. And probably one of the very first tools was a stick that had this crook in it, because it enabled you to draft out as you were spinning. Now, the variation on the stick is what later became known as the traditional Russian spindle. And the Russian spindle is nothing more than a supported spindle that is essentially a stick. Now, this is something that needs a support in order to keep it spinning. And this is an antique. This is an antique Russian spindle. A variation on that, this is a modern Russian spindle. Spins a little bit smoother, a little bit faster. Variation on the Russian is the fang style of spindle. And so we had all of these sticks that were essentially making yarn. And then at some point in time, somebody went, hey, I bet if we drill a hole in a bone, we could make more yarn faster. And so the supported spindle was formed. And from that, here are a couple examples of early combination drop support spindles. Whorled spindles, we'll call them whorled spindles. This is a bone whorl from the Byzantine era. And I had a shaft made for it. And this is an African whorl from about 1200 AD. And it is a clay whorl. And if you'll notice how similar these two are. So after the shaft style of spinning, you ended up with a support spindle with a bead whorl on it. Again, the whorl is what is creating inertia. And here's a hybrid of that with this hollowed out area. It spins long and it spins fast for very fine yarn. Then the whorl moved from bottom whorl to top whorl, and here we have a drop spindle. And this is a drop spindle with a stone whorl. Now, a drop spindle functions or operates under the premise that you're using gravity in order to create inertia as well as enable you to draft out. And there are 2 styles. You have a top whorl and a bottom whorl. And so here is an example of a top whorl. Flip it over and you can do a half hitch, and this is a bottom whorl. The nice thing with this one is it flattens for easy transport and storage. So, and then you have hybrids of this. And these are 2 examples of hybrid. These are Tibetan style spindles, and both, this one is a support Tibetan style, this can either be spun supported, or you can do a half hitch on the top and spin this as a drop spindle. See that? And then, just to add more confusion to the mix, we also have Turkish style spindles. And if you'll notice, both of these Turkish style spindles have notches at the top, so they can be spun suspended, or with bowls, these can also be spun supported. Now, when I first started spinning, I started spinning with a traditional drop spindle, and I went straight from a drop spindle to a wheel. And then I sort of backtracked, and I have to say, learning this stuff and learning this stuff, there was a definite learning curve to it, but I'm so glad I had the opportunity to do it. And in my mind, I thought to myself, oh, if only I had done this, I would have been able to spin so much better, so much faster. So in talking with the Peahen, I actually learned where she stood on it, and it blew my mind just a little bit, because I would have thought that the easiest or best place to start would have been with a bead style support spindle. The Peahen had other thoughts on this idea. So let me ask you this. I'm a brand new spinner, and I'm looking at entering the world of spinning. And as someone who's been spinning for as long as I have, I'm going to be the first to admit, when I first learned how to spin, I learned on a drop spindle. And while it was a functional way to spin, it really inhibited me, because with a drop spindle, you're dealing with gravity in essence. So you've got a spindle, it's spinning, but it's hanging suspended, and that weight is always going to be pulling on your fiber, and that is going to, it's going to make you have to work a lot harder, in my opinion. Whereas with a support spindle, you have support, and as I have a bowl with me, because I like spinning supported, and I'm a huge fan of magnets. So let me ask you, if I were a brand new spinner, I just wanted to get started, what would be the best spindle for me to start out on?
You're not going to like my answer.
Okay.
I will absolutely always recommend a drop spindle to start with.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because you're going to find more people in the community who can help you as you're struggling to learn how to draft, how to deal with, the spindle, the momentum, the backspin. More people know how to drop spin than know how to supported spin. So when you start getting frustrated and you're looking for somebody who can answer some questions about what am I doing wrong, you're going to get more people who can help you with a drop spindle than with a supported spindle.
I think we need to change that.
I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear.
It's not.
Because I always will go for, personally, I will always go for a supported spindle. Any spinning project I have that I'm going to do, I'm going to spin supported before I spin with a drop spindle.
Tell me why. But the difference between, in your opinion, because you've been spinning longer than I have, the difference between spinning for a project on a drop spindle than a support spindle.
It's all about control. When you're spinning on a supported spindle, you don't have to fight gravity, which you already alluded to. As opposed to spinning with a wheel, you don't have to worry about your feet and the speed of your feet versus the uptake of the wheel versus how much twist the wheel is putting into your fiber. When you're spinning supported, you have all the control in the world over how that yarn is going to turn out. So if you've got a very specific project and a very specific weight of yarn and amount of twist that you're trying to get into it, supported spinning is absolutely the way to go. But you have to be enough advanced in your spinning practice to know how you want your yarn to turn out. If you're just learning the basics of how to spin a yarn, I'm going to suggest drop spinning, because more people can help you. You'll have more mentors, more support in the drop spinning world.
as you can see, I have an amazing vista behind me, which I didn't plan on having today. I am in Maryland, and the outdoor filming that I had planned for this particular segment of my road trip in working with tools while on the road was kind of derailed by the rain. Luckily, a local meadery just happened to pop up on Google Maps, and this is where I found myself. I am at Orchid Cellar Meadery in Maryland, and it is the perfect place to talk about spinning on the road and portability of tools. So the tool that I'm using today is a Russian Chac-Chac. It's kind of like a mashup of spindles. This is from Straddle Creek Spins, and one of the things that makes it nice is it has the metal tip on the bottom. And why this is important when you are on the road is, as I discovered earlier today, when you're going over bumps, you're a little bit less likely to have this bounce out of the support bowl that you're using. The support bowl that I've chosen for this particular spindle is from the Spanish peacock, and one of the reasons why I love it is it's shaped like a martini glass. And as always, I've talked about them before. I love magnets, and I do have a magnet on this bowl. I just have it underneath my skirt, and it is firmly attached. So if I stand up or if I move my skirt, my bowl isn't going anywhere. Or if I need to reposition it, I certainly can, and I've got some variability there. The fiber that I'm using is from Inglenook. It is one of their sample, and I thought it would be perfect on this rainy day. Now, in my glass is mead. One of the things that I love about mead is the fact that it's a honey-based. It's not a spirit. It's not a liqueur. It's a honey-based fermented beverage. And fermented beverages were traditionally the first kinds of fermented beverages that early peoples consumed. And you have to remember, historically, when it came to water quality, you never knew whether or not you were going to get sick from drinking the water in your local area. Now, if you were drinking a fermented beverage, you were far likely to get sick. Because mead is honey-based, it pretty much lasts forever. It is filling a little bit, and it does sort of quench the thirst. The one that I chose to drink as I was spinning today is called Monk. It's been aged for over 50 years, and I thought in this kind of setting, this would be a wonderful place just to sit, kind of relax, think about where we want to go next on our road trip, and get a little bit of spinning in. So with a Russian spindle, one of the reasons why I chose this for the road trip is twofold. One, it's lightweight, it's small, it's portable, and because Russian spindles are so light, I know I'm going to get a very fine or a very thin yarn. Unlike some of the other spindles that I've chosen to bring with me, I know that I'm going to be able to spin thin on this one, and I have a very specific project planned for this road trip. So as I've been moving along, and I'm not driving, thankfully, my videographer and my sister is doing all of the driving. My daughter is in the back seat knitting and frantically making stitch markers, and I'm in the front seat spinning as fast as I possibly can as we're going through states for the final project that I have in mind. So I guess even though I'm a process spinner, I do have a final project in mind for this. So because this is a spinning show, I am going to actually talk a little bit about spinning. If you're just getting started with a Russian spindle, let's go through the basics of what it takes to spin on a Russian. Getting started with a Russian spindle. Typically, Russian spindles are very lightweight. They're uniform. This one's fun because it has the captured ring on it, and I love the colors. They usually have a very sharp point at the top. Here's the downside to getting started on a Russian spindle. Because they are so very light, they do spin very fast, and it requires you to draft a little bit more quickly than you might normally. So for this one of the reasons why I chose this one is because I also can store fiber here as I spin. Why I chose the Inglenook fiber is because there's a lot of variety in here. This is a mix of fibers, and I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could still spin thin when I had a variety of fibers. So I'm going to store this here, and this is a very common thing to do when you're spinning on a Russian. But one of the things it's a setback and it's nice about a Russian spindle. The Russian spindle has a really nice flicking tip, so your fingers are not going to get tired as you flick. So I'm going to start, I'm going to pull out a little bit, and I'm going to flick. Now, the nice thing also with this is I can pull out, I can do a draft and flick method, and I can use my ring finger and my pinky finger to stop the spin on the spindle. This road trip is where I discovered the use for our pinky finger. I do believe, I don't know this for a fact, I'm just making this up. I think the pinky was originally designed for spinners so they could hold on to their spinner and use it as a brake when stopping it, because that's exactly what I've been doing. So you have a park and draft method, or you can do a spin and hold method. And in order to do that, you need to let the spindle rest in your hand. So as I get started, I can do the park and draft, which I'm stopping it up at the top and I'm drafting out. My drafting triangle is right here, and I'm pulling some out. I'm adding the twist and stopping it, pulling some out, adding the twist and stopping it. And then I'm going to store it here for a little while, and then when I'm ready to wind on, I'll just do a butterfly very quickly, and I'll come down and I'll wind on. Now the reason for doing that is as you build your cop, you've got a couple options. It's nice because you can build a consistent cop and then wind back up. Now the other way, once you get proficient or once you get more comfortable spinning this way, you can, I'm going to park this here, start spinning and then letting it spin as you draft out. And for that, I am predominantly using my ring finger to hold the spindle. The nice thing with this, I've found, because Russian spindles are so light, they don't spin forever and ever and ever. So you don't feel like you need super long arms. And you do have quite a bit of control. Ooh, I've got a piece of silk.
Ooh, a piece of candy.
My daughter's chiming in. Ooh, it's like candy. I'm not at the best angle because I'm doing this on the table. In my lap, I'd have much more arm room. But again, I can either, with fiber that has all of this variety in it, when I hit some of this variety, like this right here, this is some sari silk that's been blended in, I can go back to the park and draft method in order to keep it consistent. And then once I am past that, I can go back to the spinning and drafting out. like so. So I went ahead and moved it back into my lap just because it gave me a little bit more control to close out. And this is a little bit more comfortable place to spin. So I'm going to spend the rest of the afternoon filling this bobbin. Once again, I am spinning on a Russian spindle from Straddle Creek Spins. The bowl I'm using is a lovely martini glass shaped bowl from the Spanish Peacock. My fiber is from Inglenook's Fiber. And one of the reasons why I like Russian spindles for a road trip is because they don't spin so fast that I'm drafting out long strands. The nice thing with this is it's controlled and it's compact, and in a car I don't want to be reaching my arm all the way across in front of the driver because those would create unsafe driving situations. I am enjoying a glass of mead at Orchid Cellar Meadery, and I'm going to spend quite a bit of time this afternoon putting the rest of this on my spindle. Whoa, it's been a season. 1,900 miles, 5 states. This was truly an epic road trip. In my mug is nothing more than warm tea because tea has always been a wonderful way to relax and reflect on journeys taken. So on this road trip, we had so much fun. I met people that I never thought I would be able to meet. I had experiences that I never thought I would be able to experience. And one of the best things, or one of the smartest things that I think that I did on this trip was to pack my little notions bag. So if you'll remember back at the beginning of our journey, I said that I wanted to create travel postcards along the way, not realizing what that would entail. I happened upon a site and it was an initiative, and it was an entire art project to create tapestry postcards. Well, here's the thing. I don't know how to tapestry weave. And as a fiber artist, it's almost one of those things where it's like, oh, it's weaving, it's fiber. How hard can it be? Until you get in and you actually realize what's involved in putting one of these postcards together. And as an afterthought, I tossed in my tiny handy woman tapestry loom. Honestly, I never thought I would use this. I'm so glad I threw it in because this gave me the opportunity to start practicing with this idea of tapestry weaving. And the really cool thing with tapestry weaving is really all you're doing is painting with yarn. And as a traditional weaver, it was hard for me to negotiate and realize that I could manipulate my warp to look like trees and foliage and rivers and mountains, and then I had to remember to put the border in there. So this is one in progress, and it actually was taking me a lot longer than I anticipated. So I'm glad that I have the small one to practice, and who knows, maybe next season I'll do a little bit more in-depth show on tapestry weaving because I actually don't know that much about it, other than there are some stunning examples of tapestry weaving. So just kind of a quick recap for this season. It was wonderful meeting people and learning a little bit more about the craft of making support spindles. I was introduced to a relatively well-established meadery, and I have an entire case of mead coming to me very soon. So I have a feeling I'll be featuring that particular meadery on many more episodes to come. I was also able to see some wonderful sights, and I think that's probably the neatest thing when it comes to being a fiber artist and traveling on the road It's meeting people, sharing your craft, sharing what you do with others who may not know about it. Anywhere I pulled out a spindle, people came up and asked me what I was doing, and I was able to talk a little bit about the art of making yarn. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me this season. I'm so glad you were here. As always, I am looking forward to another season, and happy travels, happy spinning.